Look closely at your surroundings. Do you truly feel safe here, wrapped in this seeming tranquility? Perhaps you believe you've got it all figured out, that your life is moving exactly along the course you've set. Yet something feels wrong, doesn't it? There's a subtle hum in your thoughts, a constant whisper nagging at you, hinting that you're letting something crucial slip away. You push it away, because acknowledging it would force you to confront a painful reality. Maybe you're slipping behind. Let me put it to you straight. No matter how well you command your field, no matter how hard you push to excel in just one thing, the brutal truth remains. Sooner or later, someone who understands what you don't, someone who links concepts beyond your wildest dreams, will take your place. Because here's the thing, the world today doesn't bow to those who lock themselves in their tiny kingdoms of expertise, perched high in their ivory towers. It belongs to the ones who dare to dance across multiple stages at once. Think about it. What tied Leonardo da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, Marie Curie, or Steve Jobs together? Your first thought might be shallow, quick. They were geniuses, right? Sure, but that's not the whole story, not even the critical piece. What truly set them apart, what few have the guts to copy today, was this. They refused to let a single tag define who they were. They leaped across the boundaries of knowledge, bold and unafraid of being misjudged. And then there's you, cozy in your specialized nook, thinking it'll make you shine, not seeing that the deeper you burrow into one trench, the less you grasp of the boundless sea around you. Do you want to know the real threat staring you down? Today's world doesn't hand out prizes for narrowing your focus. It celebrates those who tie things together. While you pour years into honing one craft, others are out there picking up 10 different skills, spotting the hidden threads that weave them into something extraordinary. They build what you can't even picture because they've got something you're missing, a wide-angle view of knowledge. Right now, as these words sink in, you might be teetering on the edge of fading away without even noticing, not because you lack ability, but because you're still clinging to the outdated myth that being a master of one trade is all it takes. So, let me ask you this. When was the last time you threw yourself into learning something totally fresh, something miles outside your safe little bubble? You're drawing a blank, aren't you? And here's why. You've swallowed the unseen ceiling society dropped on you without even pushing back. That ceiling is your true foe, not a shortage of skill or smarts. Comfort is the sneakiest cage there is, because you lock yourself in willingly, fooling yourself into thinking you're moving forward when you've been spinning your wheels in the same spot for ages. Take a close look at the people you look up to. Really study them. They didn't climb to those heights by being mere specialists in one thing. They got there by boldly bridging worlds that seemed untouchable to others. Are you ready to face this tough truth? Or would you rather keep acting like everything's okay? If you choose to stick around, if you take on the challenge of being more than just a narrow expert, brace yourself. It's not a smooth ride, but it's the only one that matters. Real wisdom isn't about piling up facts. It's about linking them together. So tell me this, do you want to stay another forgettable know-it-all, or are you ready to become someone they can't overlook? Now, pay attention here. Every time you stumble onto something new, a tiny flicker ignites in your mind. You might not catch it right away, it might be faint, but it's there, brightening a spot that used to be shadowed. Ever wonder what happens when you keep stacking those flickers? It's not just a glow, it's a burst of links that flips your entire view of the world upside down. And here's the mind-blowing part. When you venture into unfamiliar territories, when you step over the lines of knowledge others shy away from, you spark something far stronger than a single flicker. You forge a mental web that keeps expanding. Your brain's a remarkable tool, no doubt, but its real magic isn't in hoarding data. Want to know its true superpower? It's in turning that data into something practical, into ideas that can reshape the way things are. Did you realize that every time you break out of your usual lane and tackle something entirely different, your mind goes through a kind of upheaval? It actually rewires itself, sprouting new connections that carve out fresh routes to answers you never even thought of before. It's like finding a hidden passage inside yourself, one that leads to realms of creativity and breakthroughs you didn't know were there. Let me throw an example at you that'll sting a bit, but you need to hear it. How often have you felt like everything you're doing is just an endless, dull, pointless loop? How many times have you collapsed, worn out, sensing your mind stuck spinning in the same old ruts? That's not random. It's what happens when you trap yourself in a tight bubble of narrow know-how. Most folks figure the fix is to double down on what they already get, but they're dead wrong. Want to know why? Because they're just fueling the same mental treadmill that boxed them in from the start. You don't need to dig deeper. You need to stretch wider, gulp some fresh air, take on something wildly unfamiliar. Picture your mind as a sprawling labyrinth. You've paced the same corridors again and again, hunting for something different, but you've memorized every turn, brushed every wall. What happens when you step out and wander into a strange, uncharted maze? Pure magic. Your awareness widens, your senses kick into gear, and that first flicker flares into a blaze that torches your tired mental habits. This isn't just in your head, it's hardwired. Your brain actually toughens up, adjusts, gets quicker, sharper, better at cracking tough puzzles. And here's a deeper twist. The more fields you touch, the more you uncover about yourself. Ever wonder why so many feel adrift, like life's got no point? Because they've never ditched the familiar maze, never challenged what they've been told to learn. If you just keep drilling into the same old thing, how will you ever figure out who you really are? Knowing yourself doesn't come from what's easy. It's forged in what tests you, what rattles you, what stirs up the hard questions inside. Now hear this close. Real freedom means ditching the fear of starting fresh over and over. The world's drilled into you to dread the unknown, to feel exposed when you don't have the answers. But here's the truth. Being exposed is your biggest edge. The one who owns their gaps with guts is the one who can learn it all. Ego and the dread of looking foolish, those are the real walls holding you back from growing. While others shrink from seeming green, you can turn that fear into your fuel. How? By letting it shove you toward uncharted territory, into realms where no one sees you coming. That's the trick. Because when you do, nobody can guess your next play. See it like this. When you conquer different domains, you're not just stacking facts, you're sharpening something far more precious. Your judgment, your knack for sifting, weighing, and picking what matters. You turn untouchable to puppet strings, because who can sway someone who sees from every angle? While those narrow experts claw to guard their small patch, you'll be up high, spotting the shapes, shifts, and openings they'll never catch. Ask yourself this right now. Why do so many feel empty and stuck, even with more info at their fingertips than ever before in history? Easy. They never learned to wrestle with it. They'd rather gulp down data than chew it over, hoard it instead of probe it. But you can't roll like that. You've got to sift, link, and wield knowledge like a tool that rewrites the game, not some trophy to flaunt. And to pull that off, you'll need mental grit, the most overlooked yet vital skill there is. You've got to forge your focus like it's iron, push back against the shallow pull that's eating up millions of minds out there. So here you stand, at a crossroads that could define you. Two roads lie ahead. Stay cozy in your familiar rut, recycling the same old tricks you've mastered, trapped in a false sense of security, or leap into the unknown, aiming to be more than some run-of-the-mill expert. You could become a polymath, a master of many crafts, someone who binds ideas to reshape everything around them. It's your call, but here's a hard truth. The safe route always ends in a quiet ache, because no one recalls those who played it safe. So, what's it going to be? Will you keep burying your potential, or are you ready to be someone they can't forget? Now picture this, something you might have never chewed over. If you could jump back a decade and face your younger self, what would you say? Probably to quit frittering away days, to dive into more, to bet big and bold. Yet here you are, staring ahead with the same hesitation, the same jitters you had back then. Ever clocked that contradiction? We're always preaching to our past selves from some wiser future, but dodging that advice right now. That's the trap keeping you circling, thinking you're ahead when you're just pacing the same old loop. Why? Because we're stuck on a busted idea that learning's a straight shot, a tidy line from A to B. Let me set you straight. Real learning twists and spirals. It forks off, doubles back, ties together dots that look miles apart. Think of your knowledge like a giant jigsaw. Each new skill's a piece that doesn't seem to fit at first. Most toss it aside, too impatient or blind to wait for its slot. But polymaths, the real champs, they hoard every scrap, knowing one day that odd bit will snap into place, painting a sharper, grander picture than they ever dreamed. Now let's dig deeper, to a spot few dare to poke. the fear of shaking things up. You know that gnawing dread, I mean. You've felt it 100 times, that tug to cling to what you know, even if it's a drag, just because it's home turf. That fear, that pushback, it's the tallest hurdle you'll hit if you choose to rule multiple realms. Why? Because to grab something radically new, you've got to ditch something old, something you swore was part of you. Most would rather hug their wrong-headed notions than admit they've been off track. But here's the kicker. True smarts don't come from stacking up sure things. It's about piling up questions. The more you're willing to doubt what you think you know, the wider you fling the door to what's real. Want a secret nobody's spilled about the legends of history? What made them giants wasn't just raw smarts or natural gifts. It was their knack for getting restless fast. Yeah, you heard me, restless. Once they nailed something, they got itchy and chased the next hurdle. That itch, that endless drive, it's the heart of a polymath, pushing you to smash rules, dodge walls, and shake up the status quo. While the world slaps down those who can't sit still, calling them flaky or unfocused, the truth flips that on its head. Restlessness is your brain waving a flag, saying it's primed to stretch, to evolve. Listen up. When you start feeling antsy with what you're doing, don't beat yourself down or shove it aside. Cheer it on. It's the loudest hint you're ripe for something bigger. Now ask yourself, how many times have you caught someone whining, "I wish I had more hours to learn something new"? It's the lamest, most worn-out dodge there is. The raw deal, it's not about time, it's about what you put first. Time doesn't drop in your lap. You've got to snatch it from somewhere. So where are you pulling it from right now? Probably from yourself, from the future you could craft, if you poured it into something totally off your map. Ever notice how people waste hours on junk that goes nowhere, then cry they're too busy to grow? That gap's what keeps you chained, while others bolt ahead. Let me hit you with something sharper, something that cuts deep. How much is your ego stalling you from tackling new turf? Ever wonder why we crave being the big shot who knows it all? It's because that crown makes you feel solid, safe, smug. Ego thrives on that fake throne of mastery. But watch out. The tighter you grip one skill, the shakier you get when the game shifts. And believe me, it always shifts. Tie your whole self to one gig, and you're brittle as glass when the world turns. Flip that. Drop the ego, let yourself be a rookie forever, and you're bulletproof to change, because you are the change. Know the best perk of jumping between fields? You spot links no one else can, giving you an edge that's downright unfair. Where others see mess or muddle, you see clean lines. You get that it's all tied up, and you'll call the shots before they even blink. Here's a kicker. What do top dogs, companies, leaders, the real winners, hunt for? Not just the old school pros, but folks who can stitch together dots that don't match, who cook up fixes that snap molds and flip realities. They're after polymaths, people who don't just know heaps, but get heaps. And the wildest part? When you start roaming across all these lanes, you'll unearth stuff about yourself you never guessed. Not just buried skills, but fires you didn't know were smoldering. Real passion doesn't pop out of thin air. It flares when you let yourself mess with a bunch of things until one grabs you and won't let go. But to hit that, you've got to ditch the tags you've worn your whole life. So right now, you've got a choice to make. Stick to the safe, tight, predictable track you know cold, or risk stepping off it to find out what else you could be, what else you could build, what else you could pull off. It's all on you, but don't forget, the worst sting isn't from crashing after a shot. It's from never taking one. Trust me, you'll never let yourself off the hook for a life boxed in by your own scared heart, too afraid to see what you might have become. And here we are, teetering on the brink of a truth few have the stomach to swallow. The real gut punch isn't checking out without ticking off every dream. It's living without ever daring to dig up what you could have done. There's a raw ache in picturing all that untapped potential, all those versions of you that never got a shot because you picked the cushy, safe lane. But comfort, my friend, never promised you joy. It's the numbing trick fear pulls to freeze you in place. Right now, as these words hit you, you're staring at a chance that might not swing by again. The shot to pick who you'll be from this moment on. What you've been till now doesn't matter. The tale you've spun for yourself? Old news. The real story kicks off the second you crack open a new door. I get it. It's easy to figure others had more luck, sharper skills, better breaks than you. But here's the straight dope. The only gap between those who made it and those who didn't is this. Some chose to move while others sat tight. The world won't pause for you. It spins, shifts, grows. So what are you, gonna watch it roll by or make it move? Here's the cold fact. Folks quick forget those who never stood out, but they can't shake the ones who carved a mark by tying ideas, know-how, and guts in ways nobody saw coming. Those are the ones who rattle the planet, who ink the pages of time, who live wide open, smashing ceilings and rewriting the rules. So what's your next play? Because if you've stuck it out this far, you can't fake like you don't know what's up. You've felt the juice you've got inside, tasted the rush of what could be, and now there's just one move left. Take the plunge. Hard, fearless, no turning back. A plunge toward being someone who ties the untieable, someone they'll never brush off. So go for it. Dare to be more than some boxed-in pro. Dare to be a polymath, a game changer. Let your footprint be the power to fuse wild worlds, sparking fixes that flip the script, impossible to ignore. If you've made it here, you're already wired to become who you were meant to be. But don't get it twisted. This isn't the finish line, it's the real start. Once you dive into weaving all these threads, your life's never going to look the same. And trust me, you won't want it to. If this hits home, if you feel something's flipped inside you for good, then jump in with this crew, subscribe, flip on the alerts, join the mind shift that's flipping lives. And here's a little nudge. Drop this line in the comments to show you're locked in for the real ride. Today, I decide to connect worlds. Write it, own it, stick to it. Every time you do, you're shouting you're done being the old you. Never forget this. The world's always owned by those who bust their own chains. So don't hang back. This is your beat, your cue. Take that first stride and I'll catch you in the next round.